The C8 Corvette E-Ray has been spotted testing, and we got some details and some new spy videos on that. And also, we got an update on the Z06. My name is Eric, and this is RevMatchTV. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing. I'm bringing you interesting news and reviews several times per week. We're here over at CorvetteBlogger.com. Definitely go check out this website if you're into the C8. And he's got a post where we see some C8s that have been testing in Colorado, specifically the E-Ray Corvette. So this photo is from the Colorado Car Spotters Facebook group. And this is the E-Ray allegedly from the rear. We can see that the wheels are covered up, so we know we're probably going to get some type of special wheels. There is something red here right above the rear exhaust on the bumper. Not exactly sure what that is, but let me know your thoughts on that. And then we have this, appears to be a wire of some sort hanging out of the rear hatch area, the rear trunk area. Not entirely sure what that is either. But the author of this article, Keith Cornett, found a video on YouTube where there's somebody that spotted a bunch of cars that were at a parking lot in Silverthorne, Colorado. Some C8s that were obviously out testing, and lots of camo, of course. But I'm going to show you a video that is super interesting from this Colorado Facebook Car Spotters group. What is super interesting about this video is that there is no noise at all, just the road noise. We can't hear any kind of engine sounds whatsoever in this very short vertical video. So I think that really tells us something, is that we are looking at some type of EV setup as we expect. So here we are in this Facebook group, and the user, Kat Sears, she says, "Is it just me, or is this thing not making any noise in Silverthorne again today?" And there's some interesting speculation at the bottom of the page, but I don't think these folks are really experts in Facebook, or rather in C8s. Now, in this YouTube video from the Troubleshooter Network, also not a professional Z06 car spotter by any means, this guy has got some pretty interesting video here of these Corvettes, these C8s being tested. And you can see here that there is this red thing above the rear exhaust port again. Corvette Blogger is calling them red testing ports. I'm not entirely sure what they are, but if you have thoughts on those, let me know too. Clearly there's something that you don't get on the regular C8. Now in this photo from the Colorado Facebook Spotters group, again, we can see here that someone says, look, if you look closely, is that a cabinet pull door attached right over here? Again, this is a prototype vehicle. I don't think we can read too much into this specifically, what this might be. Perhaps the hood front latch mechanism doesn't work exactly as intended, because again, this is a prototype. I've sat in prototype vehicles myself, and I can tell you that they are not always fully put together. Now, if we look at the nose of this E-Ray here, yeah, we can see this sort of front, this pull handle here. Again, don't read too much into that. But I wanted to do a little comparison. I put this up in Photoshop to compare the front end from the regular 2021 C8 and this E-Ray. And we can see here we have this this plastic piece here right below sort of the camouflage part of the nose, flowing into this little blade over here. And if you look at the regular C8, it doesn't really have that. So it's sort of interesting to look at the comparison, how they might be branding this thing, how they might make it look a little bit more like an E-Ray, whatever you want to call it. I'm not even sure it's going to be called the E-Ray, but it's entirely possible that it will be. And we can see it does look a little bit different here. Also, this piece over here, this vertical piece, appears to be at a different angle than we get on the regular C8. This appears to be sort of heading towards the headlight over here, so it's sort of angled up like this as opposed to like this. There you go, like this. So it has at a different angle, and there is a little bit more wrap going on here too. It's sort of difficult to see in the lower part exactly what we're getting, but there is something a little bit different about the nose of this E-Ray here when you compare it with the regular C8. So interesting sort of comparison. I just wanted to bring that up and put it up in Photoshop and let you guys see what the differences might be and how you might be able to, I'm going to emphasize might be able to identify a future E-Ray from the nose. Again, we're in prototype land here, so not a lot of information on it just yet. Over here at GM Authority, they have spotted a rather interesting looking button on the dash. Here's yet another photo of it here. So this is a GM Authority exclusive, I guess. So we can see down here, let me zoom in a little bit, we have this, this button down here. And that, of course, is not on the current C8. And there's been some speculation as to what it is. You can see here's a little bit more of a zoomed-in view. Again, we're looking at a prototype. You can see these wires dangling over here. So this is not found in the regular C8 by any means. And they're trying to figure out what the meaning of this button might be. Also, what is notable, too, is that the display here seems to be kind of blocked off, so we can't really see what's going on. Obviously, that's to keep prying eyes away, so it's going to have some type of different information system. We're going to get probably some information about the hybrid system in it, too. Here's a couple of other shots, too, and GM Authority is reporting that tire sizing will be 275 in the front and a 345 in the rear, 20-inch in the front, 21 in the rear. And they're also reporting that we're going to get a redesigned lower front fascia. So what is this mystery button here? So again, over at GM Authority, they have identified it, and apparently according to some very eagle-eyed readers, and they're saying that this button is used in other Chevy models, including the Chevy Volt and the Chevy Bolt EV and EUV. Recall Central, by the way. and you can see what this looks like over here on the Bolt. I think this is, and so they're saying, hey, this is going to be a regen button. So with the regenerative braking technology, if you're not familiar with it, what you can do is you can set the vehicle so that when you take your foot off the gas, what happens is that instead of just coasting, you're actually putting the energy from coasting into a generator, and that is going to provide regenerative braking. So it's going to do two things. It's going to slow the car down. It's also going to juice up the battery a little bit too. I've driven it in many different cars, like for example the Mustang Mach-E, and a number of other cars too. You can tailor the regenerative braking to your liking, and you can sort of do one pedal driving, something that the BMW i3 also had as well. So it's something that appears to be in this vehicle. So we can definitely say, I think pretty assuredly, that we are going to have some type of regenerative braking happening here too, some type of one pedal driving. Now what's under the hood, or hoods so to speak, what's under the rear hatch and the frunk? GM Authority is reporting that we're going to get the 6.2 liter V8, the LT2. Not quite sure on the power of that. I don't see any reason for GM to change it significantly. But what is significant is that we are probably going to get two front-mounted electric motors, making this an all-wheel drive Corvette, of course. They're saying total horsepower is to exceed about 600 horsepower. There are some early reports that this might be faster than the Z06. I think that's highly unlikely. In my opinion, what we're likely to get with the E-Ray is probably a rather mass market model that's going to be marketed alongside the regular Stingray. I think this is going to be something that is relatively affordable because General Motors has been pushing into EVs. As you're probably aware, General Motors is pushing into EVs pretty heavily, like Ford is as well. Ford says they plan to sell 40 to 50% of their vehicles as full EVs by 2030. General Motors has slightly more ambitious targets by 2040. I think they said they plan to have just about everything EV. We're not quite sure how that is going to play out, but it's pretty clear that General Motors is stepping into this EV space pretty heavily right now, and we've got the Hummer coming up very shortly, so I would expect to see the Corvette, the E-Ray, as a mainstream model, and I think it's going to be priced just a little bit higher than the Stingray. Again, this is just my speculation right now. Obviously, I don't know. I don't have any specific information on pricing. I'm sure GM doesn't have any of this information yet either because it hasn't been released. Let's talk about the Z06 for a minute. That is coming up very shortly. The big reveal is in October. It's on October 26th, and you can view it online. the link that Chevy has provided us. Now, I wanted to compare the nose of the Z06 with the current Stingray, and also a little bit more than that too. So if we're looking at the nose here, we can see that there are some differences, although they are pretty subtle. So this is the official photo of the Z06 from Chevy, and looking at the nose here, at first glance it does look pretty similar to the Stingray, which I've got on the bottom. But you can see here that this vertical piece right over here with this little winglet above it, this vertical piece again is pointing outwards towards the side of the car, whereas in the C8, the Stingray, excuse me, is pointing inwards. So that is a big difference, and it also seems to be reflected in the E-Ray that we just looked at a moment ago. So that is a significant difference. I would expect perhaps it's going to have a little bit more cooling capacity. Perhaps that is one of the reasons why they moved that there, although that's unclear to me. But this little winglet does extend all the way into the body almost here too. It kind of lines up with this little character line on the front of the fender here. Same sort of thing, although it's a little bit different here on the Stingray down below. So we can see there is a difference in the fender. If you look carefully here, the fender is sort of, I guess I would call it flat. It doesn't have as much outward movement, but if you look over here, we've got a little bit of a character line here, and also at the top of the fender we have a character line here too, flowing from below the headlight all the way almost over to the driver's door. So this tells me that of course the fenders are definitely going to be wider on the Z06. You look over here, we don't have that character line. Here we do. Obviously we've got some bigger wheels and tires here as well. So those are a couple of the differences. But now if we go over to the side of the vehicle here, there's also some pretty significant differences here too. So just putting them up side by side, once again, we can see lower on the Stingray, we have this plastic piece here for the intake, which has a sort of C type of shape. But on the Z06, we can see it has a Y-type shape, which sort of reminds me of Lamborghini. Lamborghini, anyone? And obviously what we've got here are wider rear quarter panels too. The rear fenders are wider, so we have a different sort of design going on here, a more aggressive design language that is happening over here. We can also see the Z06 logo, but in the door here, this character line sort of flowing into the intake here. It is apparently, I think it's a little bit wider here too, although I'm not quite sure on that. And the flow of the thing here too, this bottom of the Y piece flowing into the door, we do have some different lines on the bottom of the door here going into the door sill. So it's a little bit more complex looking, in my opinion. This is a little bit simpler. This is a little bit more complex, perhaps a little bit busier. You need to see it in person, of course. So that is something that is noticeably different between these two vehicles here. It's just overall wider. And what we have on the back here is this little spoiler. Now, it's been seen out testing with a much larger spoiler than this. In fact, a wing, and there's some hypothesis. Here's the again, the Stingray. There's some hypothesis going on that perhaps this bigger wing that we're seeing out testing, this is going to be part of a Z07 package, and I think that's probably accurate. One more quick comparison with this blue one here. You can see that, again, looking at the nose, you can look at the differences in the nose, just a slightly different angle. You can see that it is just a little bit more aggressive looking up front with the Z06. Looking at the side profile here too, you can see again the additional width. Just wanted to show you a different color. Now I just wanted to show you what people are thinking of on the internet here. I don't really think I agree with this, but this guy Michael A, senior member, this is over at Corvette Forum. He's saying, doesn't make sense for a Z06 to have a naturally aspirated engine. I'm thinking not, and then he goes into a whole bunch of theory about why it's going to have some sort of forced induction, and of course this spawned a rather lengthy debate and a rather lengthy discussion, which I'm not going to get into here. But to summarize the discussion and to summarize what I think is the pretty much consensus of what's going to be under the hood of the Z06. Here we are at caranddriver.com, and they're saying, and I think I agree with this, the first upcoming high-performance C8 Corvette will arrive on October 26th, and you want to hear its 5.5 liter flat plane crank V8 scream. So I don't think we're going to get forced induction. That is definitely not sort of the consensus right now. We can see here is a version with this massive wing. We can see how aggressive this looks. You can see how big the rear fenders are here. You can see how big the front fenders are with this character line. And you can see this additional complexity that I was talking about in the door too. And you can see just how fat this air intake is and how aggressive looking this thing is. You can also see a better view of these front pieces here that sort of extend up into the little winglets. There's been all kinds of speculation as to how much power we're going to get. I've seen anywhere from about 605 to 700 and something if it's naturally aspirated. I don't think we're going to get much north of about 650, probably not even that. I'm thinking about 625, something like that. Again, this is going to be open for debate. If it's a flat plane crank, which it almost certainly is, it's just difficult for the thing to crank out that much more power than this out of 5.5 liters with current technology. We are reaching sort of thermal limits, and we are reaching the end of what you can do with a naturally aspirated engine at this point. You're here because you love sports cars, so I definitely recommend you check out this video linked over here on the Mustang Mach-1. No, it's not a Corvette, but it does have a manual transmission, and it is a fantastic car. This is the best video I've ever made. Thanks for watching.